my topic for today is how to create strong teams to develop great products. And this is what we'll be talking about. So I'll share a little bit about myself, who I am and what I do, and then I'll tell you a little bit about why this topic, why I chose to talk about this. And then we'll go to something that I call Get Ready for a Team. Then I'll talk a little bit about why communication, connection, and understanding matter. And I'll share some tools and tips on how you can work with your team or some ideas that you can do to improve your own knowledge or your own experience. So without further ado, let me get started. Oh, sorry. There we go. So about me. Right now, I work as a mental fitness coach and a management consultant. What does that mean? That means that I mostly work with startups to help them get and stay in the right mindset for growth and scale. As a management consultant, I work with teams, but also individuals, mostly managers, on how to run their teams. We do a lot of training if needed. As I was saying, as a management consultant, I work with both individuals and teams on how to improve their performance, how, if you're a manager, how to lead your team in a better way. If there's a team, then maybe we do certain training, especially in the realm of communication, and so on. As a mental fitness coach, I mostly work with startup founders, owners, or decision makers, and I help them stay in that right mental space where they can focus on growth and learning, and then of course scaling the business. As for my background, I've got 10 plus years of team leading experience. As you can see here, I've worked in marketing and management for over 6 years, and I've been an entrepreneur for over 1 year. And for the past 3 months, I've been a proud Doberman puppy owner. She's a challenge, but this is probably by far my most difficult job of all. I'm very passionate about growth. On all levels. I do a lot of personal development myself. So I like to focus on improving as much as I can, whenever I can, both personally and professionally. And then I like to share this with people. Other than that, I like writing and reading. I like hiking and running. And I love traveling. That is by far my biggest passion. So that's in a nutshell about me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask later. Now, moving to why this topic. So why did I choose to talk about building teams? I know everybody says it's all about the people, but not very many people mean that. But it is true. No matter what you are in the team or in the company, be it that you're an owner or a manager or just an employee, it really is the people that matter. So if you're not focused on working on the people, they're going to leave. And if you don't have the people, then you don't have the product. Nobody's going to work on the product or the project or anything else that you have in mind. And so people really do matter. That doesn't mean that they're like a protected endangered species, but it just means being fair and investing in your employees and in their opportunities for growth, knowing what they're passionate about, allowing them to grow and learn, because as they do that, your company will grow and learn. And it is a work in progress. It takes time, especially for startups. Everybody does everything. And then once you get to a more sizable company, then you have to have divisions, you have to have different teams, but it's always a work in progress. Whether you grow or the company grows, or the company changes, or people change, there's always something that you can be working on. And as I said here, there's no right and wrong. It's just what works and what doesn't work. And in this case, you just test. You test a lot, just like you would be testing with the product or the project, or running experiments for marketing or advertising. This is what you do with people as well. You try something and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you change it. If it works, you keep it, and then you improve it over time. But as with anything else, team leadership and people are a work in progress. Now, let's talk a little bit about you as a team leader. Now, My first point here is evaluate pros and cons of the team. What does that mean? Mind you, this is all focused on you as a leader, be it that you're a manager, a founder who works closely with the team because it's small, no matter who you are, but if you're leading a team, this is where we focus. What I mean by evaluate pros and cons is there are two ways you get a team. One is you get to choose your team, be it from the company or you're hiring people. And then the other way is you kind of inherit the team. So you're given the team. Both case scenarios, there are pros and cons. And what you have to do is see them. So maybe you're not happy if you're getting a team that you know nothing about, but it is your team. And so you need to know how to lead those people. And if you're choosing the team, you may think, oh, well, this is the people that I've chosen. I shouldn't have any concerns, but that's not the case. So you have to know what you're getting yourself into when it comes to the people. And of course, this is going to take time, but the first thing you can do is evaluate. You see who the people are, what the team is about, what you need to do. And then you say, okay, here are the benefits, here are the downsides. And then you get yourself to neutral. What does that mean? It means you as the leader, you have to be balanced and calm, and you have to know where you're going with the team. So you need to have a vision, you need to define your needs, you need to define your own expectations as a leader, because we're all people and we add our own thing to the team. Whether you want it or you like it or not, it's there. So if you know where you yourself come from as a leader, everything else is going to be a lot easier because you're going to be working on yourself, and that's going to kind of transfer on the team in due time. And what I say here about being transparent and embracing your vulnerability, we all, especially at the beginning of our careers, we all like to be the know-it-all. We have to have control over everything. And it's perfectly normal if you're that way. You'll grow out of it. But the important thing is that you're aware of this and you know what you're doing and you know where your blind spots are, what your downsides are, and you work on that. But you also show that that's okay. And that's what I mean by embracing your vulnerability. And then, of course, you have to stay open-minded and curious about your team, about where the company goes, because as a team leader, you may be the mediator between the team or the company goals and what the team wants. And so knowing what those are and keeping an open mind, even if you disagree with some things or that's something you would never, ever do, you have to understand why. So you have to care, you have to be there, you have to work on the people. And then this is your job. It is your job to care about your team. Of course, it is your job to meet the company's goals and to, make money, or depending on what team you are, but you have to be focused on the company goals, of course, but it is your job to be focused on the team as well and to develop them and to help them grow. So if you don't know how to do that, that's okay, you'll learn. But what you need to do is you need to be brave enough to ask for help. So you can go for mentors, coaches, consultants, and they don't need to be something you have to pay or the company has to pay, because a lot of, for example, startups, they don't have the funds to pay all these amazing people who know a lot of things. But there are a lot of free programs or a deal that you can make with somebody. A lot of mentors are happy to help pro bono initially because we like to pay it forward. So try to find somebody that you can learn from if you don't know how to do something and there's no way for you, for example, to find out on your own, or it's just easier to talk to somebody. And so you do all these things, and this is not a one-time thing. This is something you repeat. So not with every team, not every day, but once in a while, you have to check in with yourself. You have to check in where you are. And when you know what that is, then you're going to be able to lead your team better. And then you're going to be able to actually create that strong team that's going to develop great products. All right, now that we covered you, let's move on to what the team needs. So the main point of my talk is this triangle. In order to have a strong team, you need to have communication before anything else, and then connection and understanding. But communication, I know it's like I try to make it equal sides, but communication is the strongest one, and it is your base. That's where it all comes from. And I'll show you why. Okay, so why communication matters. A lot of times we start by assuming that what we would do, something else would do as well, or something that we wouldn't do, the other person wouldn't do, or that the other person is going to do the job the way we would do it. Well, guess what? That's not always the case. I know, surprise, right? And that's where miscommunication happens, because sometimes you would assign a task to somebody and expect results without being super clear about what they need to do. Or you would assume that something is done and it's not, but you didn't check about it. Or you would just expect something and your expectations wouldn't be met. And that's a problem, because we assume, and we assume a lot. And it is totally okay to think like the basic things are going to be taken care of. Maybe we can be free to assume that, but always ask questions. And that's why communication matters. You have to be transparent. You have to be super clear about what you're expecting from your team, about what you want them to do, about how the task should be. If there's a way the certain task needs to be done in a certain way, you have to say that, you know. More information can be hurtful, but in some situations it's really, really necessary. So keeping in mind that if you're doing something with the team, you should always question, okay, well, did I share everything? Or did I ask everything? Or did that person, was that person clear enough? So communication before anything else is about clarity. The less you assume, the better it's going to be. And the more you're going to achieve, and the less you're going to go back and repeat and redo things. Another thing is, of course, communication builds trust. So if you're transparent, if you're open, if you're curious, if you share, your team is more likely to open up as well. And they're going to share, they're going to ask questions, they're going to question things. And this is what you want. You want constructive discussions. You want your team not to blindly follow your directions. That's how they build great products, because they turn on their mind, their thinking cap, not just their doing cap. So you want to make sure that you're open and transparent, because good communication builds trust. And of course, that it encourages growth. And this is where feedback comes in the most. So for example, feedback, you can practice the official one, like having feedback sessions, but give and ask for feedback as much as you can. As a team leader, for example, you're their role model, whether you like it or not. They're going to look up to you. And so if you ask for feedback and if you share your feedback as much as possible, your team is going to do the same thing. And the more you do it, the easier it's going to be to solve certain problems, the easier it's going to be to come up with solutions, the easier it's going to be to share when somebody messes up. So you want to create this, we'll talk a little bit later about this, but the safe zone. You want your team to be comfortable with you as their leader, even though they know, you're the team leader and you have other things to do, you have your own tasks, but you need to be there for them. And we go back to it is your job to do that as well, even though nobody kind of officially tells you that, but you have to be there for the team. And of course, communicating in the right way pays it forward big time. So if your team sees that you're sharing feedback, unsolicited feedback, but saying good job when a good job is done, giving constructive criticism when that's needed, and then asking, communicating with your team on your own tasks and sharing what you're doing, and asking them for advice, that is a pay it forward big time, because that's what your team is going to do then. If you do it, they're going to do it because they see it from you. All right. When it comes to understanding, this is where we come to the safe zone. So understanding matters because it creates the safe zone. What do I mean by understanding first? Understanding in the sense of, you know, where your team comes from, not just physically, but who they are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, where they'd like to improve, what are they like as people. And I know this takes time. So, you know, give yourself time. You don't have to know all of this right away, but you will want to learn this if you want to create a strong team. So understanding where your team comes from, where the people come from, who they are as as people and as employees, as your team members, creates a safe space. If they know that they can come to you, and that kind of ties back to communication. If they know that they can come to you with their problem, with a situation, with a mistake, that's fantastic. That's a really strong step forward in having a great team, because they feel safe enough to come to you and say, hey, I messed up. I'm going to figure it out, but I messed up. And you want to hear that from your team member before you hear it from your boss. So you have to make sure that there's understanding. And of course, understanding in the sense of somebody made a mistake. Okay, do not drill it into their head that they made a mistake. Let's see how we can focus on solving it. You can say, of course, you know, this is a mistake that caused XYZ, but let's see how we can fix it. So you let it go. You state the fact and you let it go. And of course, understanding fosters curiosity, because you want to learn about who these people are, what they do, be it with tasks, be it with who they are, but it fosters curiosity and encourages connection and collaboration. Because if everybody's trying to understand where the other people are coming from and who they are and how they do things, and if they do something a certain way, why they do it a certain way, it creates connection. And people are more likely to collaborate, as in, oh, you know, let me give you a hand. Let me help you out with this. Oh, I see that you're struggling. How can I help? That's what understanding means. And then, of course, that enables learning, because you can see the downsides, or everybody else can do it. And then you can encourage each other to learn and grow. And then finally, going back to encouraging connection, we go to why connection matters. Well, it turns a group of people into a team, number one. So super important. Connection matters because if your people are connected, they're actually going to be a team. If everybody's doing their own job just to get it done and doesn't think about how that affects the other person on the team, that's not a team. That's a group of people working together. You want to have a team. You want to have somebody who does their job and says, okay, well, I'm doing this, but how would that affect Sarah? How is she going to work with what I'm giving her? Or is she going to need something else? And that's where they connect more. They ask more questions. They think about who they are and how they fit into this whole team. And then, of course, on a larger scale, how they fit into the business. And if there is anything that they as a team can do to help other teams grow. And of course, that fosters results. So with good teams and connected people, you can 100x your results. You can million x your results, depending on where you go. But strong teams generate results. But what you have to do is go from a group of people to a team. And communication, understanding, and connection, they all come together to make this happen. Connection, of course, empowers everyone on the team. It is very encouraging atmosphere, and people feel safe to share. It goes to faster problem solving if people are connected. Like I said, you know, you're not thinking about just your job, but you're thinking about how that connects to the bigger whole. It opens communication. If people are more connected, they're more likely to say openly what they mean, or without any constraints and without fear that that's gonna, you know, go back and bite them. And then, of course, more connection means more understanding. More understanding means more connection and better communication. So it kind of all goes back to the triangle. They are all important. Your communication is your base, of course, but from communication stem connection and understanding, and they are there. If you're missing one, it's not going to work. you may get still results, but you may have unsatisfied people. You may have people who are going to leave very soon. You may have disinterested people. You may have people who never share and just, kind of quietly quit. They go away. So you want to make sure that you have the 3 and that you work on the 3. And don't be hard on yourself. This takes time. All of this takes time. As you just get started, if there's anybody here who's just starting out, what you want to make sure is you go back to the get ready for the team. You focus on yourself first to make sure you know who you are as a leader and where you come from. And then all of these other things are going to come into place. All right. Tools and techniques. So some tips on what you can do to create a better team. First of all, structured meetings. This is, no science, rocket science. It's just there. The more structured your meetings are, the better it is for the team, especially if you're completely remote. It is really good to have an agenda ready so that people know what you guys are going to talk about. And this goes for both individual and team meetings. If you have an agenda, it gives people structure and it helps them prepare. So structured meetings as much as possible, it'll help them. Another thing is rubber ducking. And if you're a developer, you probably know what this is all about, but it's the original term means explaining something in simple language so that you can solve a problem. And it's usually used for development, but it can be used in any other situation. So rubber duck your team. Have them explain their problems to you. If they're facing an issue with a task, ask, well, okay, what's going on? Try the whole, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. This helps, guys. It really, really helps because when people start thinking about how to explain it in an easier way, they usually get the solution. They come up with the solution. Yes, and this technique is kind of somewhat new to me, but I also kind of did it without knowing what it's called. Here's what it is. When you do yes and this is really great for conflict resolution, you start by assuming that the other person is at least 10% right. So there's never 100% wrong. And with that, you go and say, okay, well, there has to be something that I like about that idea, or if a situation is a problem, there has to be something that I like about that situation or the solution that the person suggested. And so you say, for example, if somebody says, we can generate more revenue by doing 10 additional experiments. You can say, even if you completely disagree with that idea, let's see what you can find there. One thing could be, oh, okay, well, running experiments. What you can say is, what I like about that idea, so the 10% that I see as good, what I like about that idea is you want to run experiments. So we can let's run 2 experiments instead of 10, but right away, you're not saying, no, that's not a good idea. What you're saying is, oh, okay, well, it's not the best idea, but what I do like, and then you add your own. So it's a yes and, it's not no, but. Arts and crafts, this is something, of course, it depends on whether you're allowed to do it or not, or you want to, but it is a fun thing. It's literally what it is. It's arts and crafts. If you can find an activity that's artsy, you do it with your hands and get a team to do it as a bonding technique or a get-together technique, that's going to work wonders, because as you're involved in creative work, people tend to connect in a different way. So from time to time, if you can, schedule an activity that's all about arts and crafts, just to get your team into different mode. It fosters connection. Back to the future. So this is good for problem solving, for example. If you guys are working on a problem or an issue that came up and you have no idea what decision to make, what you can do is think about, okay, well, 10 years from now, if we're in the same team, and you imagine where you guys can go, what would we tell our present selves? So if the problem is, I don't know, you need to get to a different marketing channel, 10 years from now, if you look back, what would you say as your wiser self? Sharing is caring is no technique or tool, but it is kind of a piece of advice. And it ties back to you being ready to be open and foster in that way, encourage people to be open as well. If you share a problem that you're facing or a difficulty that you have with a task, or you don't know what to do with a certain thing, and ask for advice, oh man, oh, that does wonders to your team because they feel like you trust them enough to ask them for advice. And like it or not, it doesn't matter how younger or older or more experienced you are from your team, you are the team leader. And by definition, by our nature, human nature, people are gonna look at you as, you have to have all the answers. And if you ask for their help and involve them in the process, mentally, that's going to do wonders. And then the last one is something that I've been playing around with, and I saw some pretty good results, is, how you're always available on Slack. And I don't mean outside of work, I mean during work time. You're always available on Slack or whatever communication tool you're using. You're always there to answer questions. You're always there for anything. You're just there all the time. Well, try to teach your team that they can do it on their own, because eventually what you want to do is you want to make them kind of self-sustained, that you don't need to be there for them to function. So if you're unavailable from time to time, that will encourage them to seek solutions amongst themselves or on their own. And that can be a really good exercise. And to kind of wrap it all up, here are some tips for you as a team leader to take if you want to, of course. First of all, the first one is observe. So what I like to do when I ran teams or led teams, sometimes I just sit back in my chair and observe. And I'd look at my team and see what they do. And of course, this is not possible if you have a remote team, but if you're working in an office, just sit back and relax and just observe. Look at what your team is doing, how they work, their faces, if they're chatting, their body language. It teaches you a lot about them. And of course, if you see somebody's concerned, you can always ask a question about what's going on. Be okay with investing time and energy in your team. This is super important. It has to happen. So you cannot be completely focused on business goals at all times, because then your team is not going to be there for you. So you have to be there for them first. And as I mentioned before, they do look up to you. So they do want to know what you do and how you do work, and you are their role model, like it or not, in a good or a bad way, depending on what kind of a leader you are. Know your limits. As I said, you have to know yourself first as a team leader, and then build a team. And it is a two-way street. You have to communicate with them. And if you ask for something, you have to give it too. Learn to delegate as soon as possible. This is really important, because the more you grow, the more you're going to need to delegate. And ask for insight. We already covered this, so I'm not going to go into details. Make sure you organize get-togethers as a team leader if this is in your company's culture, like if the company allows this, and make sure you pay attention to the details. This is the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with, and this is where we're going to end, but the details matter. So, if somebody asked you to leave early yesterday because they were taking their daughter to the doctor's, remember to ask, hey, how did it go? Is everything okay? That is going to make your team really, really, they're going to see you as somebody who cares. And then they're going to be ready to move with you forward and to grow and to help you grow the company. It fosters that connection and understanding that's super important. And that would be it for today. That's all from me. I see Maria showed up, so I'm assuming it's about time. All right, I think we're good. Thank you, guys. That's all from me for today. The floor is open for questions.
Okay, Marcus Pasijevic, Senior Game Producer, Starloop Studios. I would like to know how to empower, infantile egomaniacs and introverts at the same time, because in this industry, we're all those. So any good tip, trick, or technique? Thanks.
Do you know where the ego comes from?
Nope.
That may be something you'd like to figure out, not like as a therapy session, but try and see. Usually the people with big ego, they either think they know it all, so they've done it all, they've been there. If it's a senior person, like a senior developer, or because you're a game producer, I'm assuming it's developers you're dealing with.
All kind of roles are involved.
Okay. Well, if it's a senior person, then you might just want to have a talk. That's what I would do. For
No,
senior,
no.
no talks.
Not from start. Usually I need to create, for example, in my case, what works very nice is to, learn some online game that I can be good as they are. So once I do a few headshots in the game, I become the crew of gang member, and after that talk can arrive. Before that, usually there is some resistance in manner that, oh, what this guy is saying, I know better. It's not done like this. It should be done like that, and so on. So that's why you give some great advices previously in your lecture. So I thought if you have any chill pill for us.
Thanks. Usually what happens with, and this is very specific with the IT industry, software and gaming too, is that, for example, people with specific knowledge, like developers or designers, they think, well, what do you know? You're a generalist. That's kind of the attitude that they come with, the ones who have the ego problem. And so that's a great example actually that you gave with the game. So what you need to do is to show that no, I may not know how to write code, but I do know what needs to be done to produce a game, or I do know what needs to be done for this project to get there on time. So you cannot compete with them in their area because you're not there. But what you can say is you demonstrate and you show expertise in your area. And then you say, well, look, we're not equals in the same field, but we are equals when it comes to the industry. I do my job well, you do your job well. This is why we're together. So that's an interesting point with the ego. That's how you can approach it, just to show that, no, I appreciate who you are in your own world, but this is who I am in my world, and let's just meet halfway. And then with the introverts, that's an interesting one. I've struggled with introverts too, but usually individual talks help, as in, hey, is there anything that I can do to help? Are you struggling with a task? Is there something that you would like to work on that's very passionate, that you're passionate about? Introverts, they don't like being pushed to the stage. And so you can just acknowledge, okay, you like to be in your own thing. You like to do your own thing. So long as the job is done, we're fine. But it would be great if you can participate in some team things, or if we're going out for coffee, you can join, because then the team can share with you and you will feel more as part of the team. So it's more of an approach. Hey, I get it. You're not the outgoing person. You don't like sharing, but here's how you can benefit if you try and do that from time to time. Would that be okay? And usually people react positively to that. I've had a couple of introverts that I worked with, and this approach by far worked the best. So not trying to push them anywhere, not trying to teach them or lecture them on anything. It's just, hey, what do you need from me? How can I be there for you?
Thank you so much. Usually I have an issue when they don't want to turn the camera, and I need to wait, for them to realize that it's okay, we are all the part of the same gang, same crew. So
yeah, it takes time for them. It takes time. It's a lot about being comfortable. And the moment they start feeling comfortable, they'll come forward. But it takes a little bit to get there.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't have that much passion.
Patience.
Patience, yeah.
Well, that goes back to, get ready for your team. It goes back to knowing where your weak spots are and what you need to do. Because, in those situations, you can ask, wait, hang on, what is that doing to me? Is this me acting from my own being impatient? Or is this really, we've got a deadline and I can't afford to do this right now? I know, usually with it usually is number two, but there's always a little bit, we all get into this, and I am very passionate about the teams that I lead. So often if something's not working, I'm like, you know, this should be a good way to do that. But yeah, I get very passionate, and I know that it's up to the people, and sometimes you can't change people. So sometimes you can accept and go with the flow for a little while to see how things go, and then you change. And I know we're always pressed by time, no matter what you're, whether you're a product manager, or anything else, or a game producer. But this is why the team matters. You know, chip away a little bit of your time whenever you can, and whenever you have the will to do that, and invest in the people. You don't have to do it all the time, but when you feel like very positive and good about yourself and how things are going, chip in and invest in them.
I have no dilemma when it comes down to empowering my team, and
Perfect.
like we are the guys from the cafe or whatever. The results are instantly there. But in my line of work, especially in outsourced company, you jump from the project literally with high dynamics, and sometimes you don't have the time for that, and that's why I asked if you have any tips and tricks. And also, that's all. Thank you.
There's my email. If you want to share anything, you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Not only you, but everyone. If you guys have any questions and I can help, reach out.
Are you sure? All the questions I have.
Yes, this is the page forward thing. So feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to, if I know how to answer, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Thank you so much.